Welcome back to part 3 of Disco Camaro. I'm restoring this 1970 Camaro, and at this point we are putting 2 more coats of primer on it, block sanding, and it's ready for paint, and we're going to have some orange metallic paint. Enjoy. Well, I'm about to paint this hood with primer, and it's been banged around a lot, so I'm just finishing up wet sanding with 220 grit. And I'm going to wipe it down, dry it, wipe it down with wax and grease remover. And there's little imperfections, you can see them now, all these little pinholes, little rough spots. So it'll need some putty just to finish up, but we're going to give it a coat primer, and I'm glad I sanded it because it was really rough and full of grease and stuff that even the acetone wouldn't take off. Now nothing's coming out. I let the paint sit too long, and now it thickened up in the can, I think. So my paint came. I ordered Summit Racing bright orange metallic. Just took a chance on it because it was only $101 for a gallon, and then you got to buy it's a 4-to-1, so you got to buy a quart activator for another $23 or something. But I was like, man, for that kind of money, I might clear coat over it if I don't like the shine or whatever. I also bought some wet clear, and excuse me. So I'm checking it out. I thought bright meant like light colored orange. This is actually pretty dark. If it wasn't for the metallic in there, it's pretty dark orange, really. I think the camera's showing it a little different. In reality, it's a little dark, but it has a ton of metallic in it, and that kind of brightens it up. I don't know, I gotta take some outside and see what this looks like. Hang on a minute. So it's kind of like almost a copper color. Should put it against something else so you can get a contrast here. It's almost like a factory color for a 70 Camaro. They made something similar back then. It was a little more bronzy. But I do have some gold flake or gold pearl. Maybe I'll put that in there and see what it does. Okay, it's just sanding the second coat of primer. Primer. And there's a couple of little things showing through. This is actually 220, which is kind of rough. It does leave some scratches if you look closely. But I had to block out some dimples and what have you. So the third spray is going to be just a light coat, and then I'm going to do that with 400 grit. And I hope the third time's the charm. Hope I got it all. I see one little dimple right there. The camera's not going to pick it up. Every time I go over it, find something else, but it's good enough. I'm happy with it. So now that I'm all done with my third coat, and I took a handheld light, and you go over areas and you can see that they're still wavy. There's pinholes. So I wet sanded this area with a block again, even though I wanted to use 400 grit to finish. I mean, it's crazy with the right angle of the light. Things look totally different again. You think you're done, and I don't think the camera's picking it up, but there's definitely imperfections. Guess I'm just being too fussy at this point. Took some picture frame, stranded wire, and I started on the bottom corner on the other side, and just working my way around, cutting through this windshield rubber here, because this is cracked, the back one's scratched. So before I paint, I'm going to take this out and clean up this edge, which I couldn't really do before. Alright, well, the wire broke. I ran out of wire. I kept snapping because it's just the strands will break, and then I did it like 4 or 5 times, but I got 3/4 of the way around, and then I was able to like push it up and just jam some shims in there and push from underneath, and it came up. And it's pretty ugly under here, but the rust isn't too bad. It's actually mostly dirt. I got a little spot here. Gotta do something about that. But now I can clean that up and paint the dash panel here too. The original white is still there. Yeah, I just put 2 coats on these mirrors. They look pretty good, except where the piece of primer came off when I was wiping it down because it was fresh. So I'm going to put the trunk back on and spray the rest. I've just given this a little time to dry. I did the door jambs. Unfortunately, wherever there was no primer, there's no coverage. You can see the black showing through. It's much darker where there's no primer. But actually the color looks a lot better than I thought. I don't think I'm going to mess with it, add anything to it. Looks really awesome in the sun. Has a nice color to it. Heavy metallic. And the can said it does recommend, strongly recommends, putting a clear coat on there. I kind of figured that. Right when I started to spray, my pressure kept dropping. Like, as soon as I pulled the trigger, it would just go down to like 10 pounds. And turns out the desiccant hose bit the dust. It clogged up. I was using it when I sprayed the primer, and apparently it's saturated. So I had to go to my little red filter backup, which I don't know if they're as good. That's all I got. And I also piggybacked this leaking well tank. You can see the rust spot. Just using it to store up a little extra air. So, I was having my lunch here. It's probably like 2 o'clock, and I've been going since about 8. Finally ready to do tack cloth and start spraying. Alright, I just finished spraying 2 coats of the base, which is already shiny to begin with, and I put 1 coat of clear. It's the Audubon Glamour Clear. I had to change tips. My gun does not have a large enough fan pattern unless I go to like a 1.8 tip. So the paint I sprayed at a 1.5, 30 psi, and then it was coming out not too good. So for the clear I went to a 1.8, opened up the fan as far as I could and laid it on nice and thick. And other than like some spots where I didn't cover sand throughs, other than that, it looks pretty stinking good, I thought, for a crappy gun and occasional dirt getting in. There's quite a few spots. There's one here I should have dabbed a little bit of metallic. I took a bug off of there, and now it looks like a paint chip. I don't know if I can do anything about that. I should have left it alone and tried to sand it out. Now there's another one. Stinking bugs. You'd think by November or October 28th the bugs would be gone. But I think I can live with it, and if I want, I'll sand it, wet sand it and buff it, or put another coat of clear on. I didn't get any runs that I noticed, so that's good. Alright, she's done. As good as it looks in the light, like, oh no, more bugs. Crap. What the heck? These suckers. Got all the doors closed. Unreal. As good as it looks, you could still see imperfections in the bodywork. I'll do it in the sunlight. Time to call it a night. So it turns out I missed a few spots on the hinges. I couldn't get in there with the big gun. And mainly there was a spot on the headlight area, right on this one corner, and I just touched it up with a Harbor Freight spray gun. Oh shoot, looks like I got a little bit of lint in there. That was like a little bit of primer showing through. Wow, when you're close up you can see every little imperfection. But I was able to use this little airbrush kit, which I bought, oh, I don't know, 15 years ago and never used it. So I had this cheapo little thing. I wasn't sure if the paint would actually go through such a small hole with metallic paint, but it works as long as you keep the pressure around 50. Which they say is the max. Whoa. So I actually just hit this entire mirror with another coat of that metallic. I didn't want to break out the spray gun and get it all dirty for that little area, but it did the job.